a DNC paid operative, Alexandra Chalupa. She literally spearheaded a plan along with the Ukrainian government, Ukrainian ambassador, to hurt Donald Trump's campaign and boost Hillary Clinton.
Hey everyone, it's Andrea. I just had a very long car ride from New York City to Virginia to visit my parents for the long weekend. And what was supposed to be a 4-hour drive took 6 hours. And we just walked the door. So there's little kids and a cat and a big zoo all around me right now. I do not have makeup on. This is me in my natural glory, which I love. So this is, hey, somebody, so I'm live streaming on Instagram because fuck Elon Musk, and also to folks on Patreon, because I want to share something which we all know, but it's validation, which helps us stay grounded and sane in these absolutely ridiculous times that we're in. And I'm going to wait for more folks to get into the Zoom room that I have with our Patreon community as well as Instagram. Oh my gosh, everybody's coming in. So if you are missing this discussion, hey Holly, if you're missing this discussion, you could not make it. This is going to be part of the free portion of this week's Gaslit Nation bonus show. The rest of this week's episode is going to look at Cop City, which is a terrifying battleground for the soul of our country. It's part of this larger fascist takeover, right? The fascists need the security forces. That's how they come to power and stay in power and so on. So let's get to Fox News, because I've been wanting to share this for a while now. And so long story short, I found myself at an event chatting away with a former, sorry, there's so many people entering the room now, so I want to slow down my story so everyone can hear it. Okay, I found myself at an event the other day with a former Fox News ad executive who had been with the company for years, including during the hellfire of 2016. And so obviously I monopolized this guy's attention. I said, okay, I drowned out the rest of the event. I'm like, we're gonna talk. I said, tell me all about Fox News. Does it make a difference when all of those resistance Twitter warriors are taking on Tucker Carlson and the advertisers? Did you feel any pinch of that? And he said, yeah, that did. Of course we noticed that. Of course we felt that made a difference. And what he said to me was, but you know, it's all WWF wrestling. It's all a show. In fact, Sean Hannity's the nicest. I don't want to be caught. Sean Hannity's the nicest guy. That's what he said. Sean Hannity, who relentlessly attacked my sister, Alexandra Chalupa, the independent contractor who risked her life and career to take on Paul Manafort and be one of the very first people to ring the alarm that the Kremlin was helping bring Trump to power. Sean Hannity, along with Tucker Carlson, put a massive target of disinformation on my sister. She could sue them. She could make a ton of money on Fox, as she should, as I'm trying to get her to do. But anyway, so he was telling me, oh, Sean is so nice. He's a normal person. All that stuff you see on his show and the other opinion shows, it's all an act. It's all WWF. They know what they're doing. They know that they're feeding bloody red meat to their base. And that's their business model. And he's like, but Sean, personally, privately, he's a normal guy. He's even come to the ad execs and has said to me, according to the source, has said to me, did I push it a little too far? Did I go too far? Do you want me to tone it down? Do you need me to tone it down for ad sales? So I know we know all that. We know that like Fox News is basically big tobacco. It's the NRA. They are, they're treating us as the oligarchs, as the saying goes, the oligarchs in Ukraine, like we're the shit they grow their money in. They don't care about our democracy. All they care about is profits. And so I was pushing back on that. I'm like, really? So they're not true believers over there? He's like, yeah, some of them are, absolutely, of course. But most of it, Fox News is a company that's ran by publicists and lawyers. And their value is this entertainment, this outrage entertainment that they create for a built-in audience that's loyal to them. And the minute that the ratings start dipping, like they did on election night when Fox News called the election for Biden, you saw a bunch of outraged Fox News listeners turn off their TV, and there was like a big dive in ratings. They then dialed it back and started like playing into the big lie to bring back the ratings, bring back the audience that they pander to. And so, yeah, but he's like, but privately, they all think another way, or they talk another way, and they know their audience is crazy. And it's all, like, that's their revenue stream, is selling that crazy to crazy and building up more crazy. And so I was like, well, what can be done about that? How do you pull the plug on that? And he was like, well, he doesn't work there anymore. He's like, well, that's just, it's entertainment. You just don't take it seriously. I'm like, but it's making a serious impact on our country. And so yeah, I wanted to share that because it's straight from the horse's mouth. And yeah, we absolutely need to bring the fairness doctrine because it's like a cigarette warning label, right? We took on big tobacco. We could put warning labels on entertainment, WWF wrestling, that's destabilizing our democracy. And what else did he say that was really interesting? I'm trying to think. And Tucker Carlson. I was like, really? So Tucker Carlson, what was the deal there? Like, what was he like? And he said, he said that Tucker Carlson was gone. He was a dead man walking as soon as Dominion brought that lawsuit. It was just a matter of time for him. And that Fox doesn't fuck around with that stuff. And one thing I want to share in relation to that is that the Dominion lawsuit has had a chilling effect across cable news. I was meeting with a producer of a major cable news network who had an extraordinary bombshell story on somebody in Trump's family. It was like a smoking gun story and I want to tell you what the story was on, there are investigative journalists at a credible newspaper that are working on the story, and I don't want to disrupt that work, and I don't want to send out a warning to the criminals that they know by now that journalists are on the hunt of this big story, but it would have been broken by now already by a major cable news network that declined to break the story because they're now so lawyered after what happened with Dominion at Fox. So that massive Dominion lawsuit has had a chilling effect across other cable news stories that are now holding back and being ultra conservative on practicing journalism and talking themselves out of really important stories for the public good because of what happened with Dominion. So I thought that was that's something that I heard firsthand from a producer who's at a major cable news network who's extremely frustrated. She had worked these sources. She had gotten this amazing story out. And ultimately what had to happen was because the cable news network passed on it, it ended up going to a newspaper that's now developing the story. And if it doesn't come out in the next month, I'm gonna just tell you what it is, okay? So warnings out there, get this story out there. You know who you are, get it out there. You know that a major cable news network passed on it. Now it's in your hands, newspaper, Pulitzer Prize winning paper, so get it out. And it's within Trump's own family. It's stuff that I've already talked about on the show in terms of speculation, but it was confirmed by this cable news producer that it was true. Because it's obvious. It's basically a damning story of how the Trumps were grifting off of the White House in their final days during the coup. And hopefully, and if that doesn't come out in the next month, I'll just say what it is because it needs to come out. So that is everything on that. Yeah, and the other story we should be following just in general with Fox, given that it is a for-profit company, an entertainment company, there is a succession battle that is heating up. As you saw, like Rupert Murdoch released some statements saying that Lachlan is going to be his heir apparent. But the whole speculation there is that Lachlan prefers his life in Australia. He prefers being a rich trust fund kid and doesn't really have the fight that the father has. Sure, he shares Rupert's ideology of hate, Rupert having been raised by eugenicists, a proud eugenicist, as we see in his legacy, his destructive legacy across Australia, the UK, and the US. And he sort of trained his son in Lachlan to be the mini-me and take over. But the problem is the four children share equal voting power, and James is married to a human being, a woman that can't stand Fox and wants Fox to die a painful death as it deserves to die after all it's done to us. And so basically the succession battle is being set up between James and the two daughters, and those three votes could cancel out far-right Rupert Mini-Me Lachlan and put the whole entire Fox company into limbo, where whoever takes it over isn't going to have that same ideological fire as Rupert had, and possibly just be more geared towards, a more sustainable business model. Because this Fox News outrage machine, which can be easily, you've got lawsuits piling up. Dominion was just one of the latest. after the big sexual harassment lawsuits against O'Reilly and Ailes. But there's more lawsuits that are coming towards Fox. So there would be, if the company left the Murdochs, then anybody that doesn't, there's a financial incentive to try to make Fox financially sustainable, and that could come for the outrage factory that feeds that bloody red meat that ultimately is a lawsuit factory for the company. Whew. So that's a lot. I wanted to share all that with you. And if you are just tuning in, I arrived straight to this live stream from a 6-hour car ride from New York City. I'm in Virginia visiting my family. And due to the lateness of our trip, I have to take over the childcare duties so my husband now can catch up on his work. And I'm sorry we don't have more time, but what you just heard is going to be part of the free Gaslit Nation bonus show, and the rest of the show is going to look at Cop City. And I would like to say to one of the comments on the Instagram Live, because we're streaming this on Instagram Live because we're trying to get the fuck off of Twitter because of Elon Musk and his whole Nazi Viper den there. So we're trying... Okay, sorry. But anyway, so that is today's Fox News tea, and I will stay on top of this stuff and update you should that really important bombshell story on the Trump family not come out in a newspaper in the next month. I'll chat more about that and tell you where that is. And thank you all. Appreciate all your help and support for the show. Keep fighting the good fight. If you want to join me for a phone bank party to get out the vote in Virginia, where I currently am, I'm committed to making 1,000 phone calls to stop posh Trump Glenn Youngkin from banning abortion by denying him full control of the state government. I'm going to be making my 1,000 phone calls just targeting him. So if you want to join me at a phone bank for Virginia, that's going to be Thursday, October 26th. At 6 p.m. Eastern with our friends at Sister District. I'm going to be on that call. I'm going to be giving away fun prizes to those who come and join. I'm making my 1,000 calls because there's no get-rich-quick scheme. There's no pill we can take. It's just grassroots power that's always moved this country forward. Grassroots power is the most reliable power we have left. And I plan to exercise mine to the fullest. I'm going to be defiant. I'm not going to let these guys get away with shit, all right? So I'm on that. I hope you can join me. Do whatever you can. Love you all. Thank you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday weekend. And it's now my turn to watch the kids and free my husband from the children. And thank you all so much. And I'll be back to answer questions, and you'll get a bonus show to the Patreon community answering your questions. Thank you so much for all of us bearing with us during this time. Hugs to you all. Thank you. No, I don't know how to turn this live stream off on Instagram. I've never done a live stream until today, so bear with me. Do I just go with this? Okay.
Hello everyone, here is part 2 of our bonus episode. It is late at night, everyone's gone to bed. The cat you may have heard meowing in Instagram live taping is somewhere during this witching hour. This is me in my natural element, hair up, no makeup, shirt dirty from momming 2 little babies all night. And I have had a very busy evening after everyone went to bed working. I'm interviewing the Pulitzer Prize winning historian Anne Applebaum tomorrow morning about many of her books and how we got to this horrific crossroads that the world is facing, with where it feels like we're teetering worldwide into fascism. And Anne is someone very special to me. Her great book, Red Famine, Stalin's War in Ukraine, cites testimony that my grandfather gave to the U.S. Congress as a survivor of Stalin's genocide famine in Ukraine. So I'm thrilled to talk to her. I'm going to bring you that interview soon. So busy time. So now we're going to do a special follow-up. Over this year, we've talked on the show about Cop City, and it's extremely important that we do an update on Cop City. And so this Cop City special is inspired by the Gaslit Nation listener, Jennifer, who is a supporter on Patreon and as part of the Democracy Defender tier, submitted this question. Can you talk about Cop City in the context of our global authoritarian shift? Have you seen this in other countries, and do you expect it to grow? Yeah, it's the security forces that you need in order to destroy democracy. I mean, if you look at, for instance, the refugee crisis in Staten Island, as I've been talking about for a while, and Trump recently just made some Hitler reference, like talking about impure blood. The refugees are coming with impure blood. That's what the Nazis would say. And we know from Ivana Trump's divorce case against Donald that Donald Trump would keep Hitler's speeches by his bedside, and we certainly see that influence in his rallies. And so when you see this, when I keep talking about Staten Island, how these Trump supporters on Staten Island are terrorizing these already traumatized refugees, including many children, blasting strobe lights, blaring horns, the police just stand idly by. And you do not see counter protests because I believe that the fear has already taken hold. Trump's side has shown that they want violence, they want authoritarianism. January 6th, all the incitement of violence, the murder assassination threat against General Milley's, and the list is of course very long. So why aren't we seeing Antifa groups streaming to Staten Island and trying to protect those refugees, trying to stop the blaring horns, stop the intrusive lights? You do see some protests, but not enough to push back. And that's because Cop City, the militarization of our cops, the cops being, like the NYPD union voting for Trump, I believe that the fear has spread with our security forces from the Secret Service to, the Biden dog. He knows what he's doing there in snarling at those Secret Service agents. So what I'm saying is that the security forces are always the first to become the foot soldiers of fascism. George Orwell knew this. This has been always true. When Hitler was threatening all of Europe, when he was marching across Europe and he was headed towards England, Orwell was preparing for the local British police to be on the side of the occupying Nazis. So that's the long tradition. Security forces attract people that like violence, people that like the surge in power, and we're seeing them massively infiltrated by white domestic terrorists. And Cop City is the ultimate culmination of that. It is the largest militarized police complex that has yet to exist in America. It's a $90 million project brought by the city of Atlanta. The excuse Atlanta gives, including its mayor, who should be voted out, is that it's a recruitment tool, that if you give cops a cool place where they could blow shit up, you're going to boost your recruitment numbers at a time when they believe that the cops are being demoralized by all these movements to try to stop their casual executions and so on. And the reality of Cop City is a lot more disturbing, and we're going to unpack that in this episode. And I want to open by talking about one of the biggest stories in the 2016 election, which Cop City is echoing today, and that was the Dakota Access Pipeline at the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation in North Dakota. Do you remember in 2016, protesters were camped out. They were facing off with militarized corporate fascism, like a militarized police force brought in by corporations and the federal government to try to demoralize and break up these protest camps, these valiant protest camps. What were they protesting? That an oil pipeline was going to be built through a reservation. It was trespassing, and that threatened the water supply and sacred ground of that reservation. It was a direct betrayal of tribal rights. Native people already suffered generations of genocide and enslavement. So you would think in this modern age that we should be doing everything we can now to accommodate them, to pay reparations. And instead, they're just further hurt, further exploitation, and so on. And that is Standing Rock. And it was a huge story in 2016. It was this story that, yes, there was Russia. Yes, there was Trump. Yes, there was Comey. There's Hillary's emails. There was the misogyny of the media against Hillary. But then you had Standing Rock, which was central to all this. And you had the AG, Obama's AG, just turning a blind eye to it, siding with the corporate fascists, and this tribe and the protesters trying to help them and protect them. They were basically just thrown to the wolves. And voters saw this, especially a lot of Bernie voters, a lot of voters on the left that couldn't bring themselves to vote for Hillary because she represented the establishment. And it was a divisive issue in 2016. Cop City is the new Standing Rock. But before we get to Cop City, I want to give an update on what happened with Standing Rock, because that issue has yet to be resolved. What ultimately ended up happening was that you had, as we've talked about in the show in the past, you had massive oil spills. There's something like 380,000 gallons of oil spilled from the Keystone Pipeline in North Dakota. So the protesters, the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation, were unfortunately right. This was a danger to their community, to their health, to their children, to future generations. Like this pipeline needs to go. The pipeline is still there. It's still operational. There are lawsuits to try to stop it for trespassing. The Supreme Court refused to hear an appeal by these cases. There's been over 830 criminal cases, charges over these protests. And what is going on is that there's still this environmental federal exploration of alternative routes, but nothing has really been provided. And so as a result, the pipeline is operational, but it's not at max capacity. And the pushback, the necessary urgent pushback by Standing Rock continues this day, and they see the pipeline as trespassing, and they are absolutely right. And if Biden wants to win Generation Z, if he wants to be the environmental president, what he would do is pass an executive order to force this pipeline to be relocated or to stop it. But that is hugely unlikely. But that's what he absolutely should do, because it would be the right thing to do morally and environmentally. And it would be part of America's long overdue reparations to First People communities across the U.S. that suffered so much. So now that brings us to Cop City, which is hanging over this election as the new Standing Rock. This issue that is rallying communities, rallying especially young voters and especially environmentally conscious voters. What you have is a public forest on the outskirts of Atlanta, and this $90 million project paid for by taxpayers in Atlanta. And all it would do is it was create some like cosplay Comic-Con for cops that want to play war games and act like they're living in a first shooter video game. If you've ever seen the movie Super Troopers, there's Officer Farva, who's this ridiculous cop that power trips, who likes to throw his weight around and everyone makes fun of him. That's what I think of when I think of Cop City. A bunch of Officer Farvas just playing out, like just role playing their fantasy games. It has a bomb explosion site. It has a helicopter landing. It has a fake mock city, right? And Andre Dickens, the mayor of Atlanta, presented some totally gaslighting argument for why Atlanta needed Cop City, claiming that it would be a space for police to learn racial sensitivity and de-escalation tactics. You do not need a Officer Farver wonderland of exploding devices, of just games, military war games, video shooter-up games to learn sensitivity. It's like we could all get into a public library to do that. So it's very much, it's gross. The whole thing is absolutely, it's as obscene as it sounds. And families have moved away from the area because the explosions are so loud and they scare the children. So Bloomberg did a big profile of the people who live on the outskirts of Cop City, and one woman had to move out because her kid felt terrorized by all the explosions and the guns going off in what is trying to be built as Cop City. And so in addition to all that, it's important to point out that Cop City is being built not in super white, super affluent Buckhead, a suburb of Atlanta that complains about rising crime and not enough police. No, it's not being built there. It's being built in a predominantly Black area. And to try to push back against this, there's been an amazing swell of grassroots power where nearly 120,000 signatures have been collected when they only needed 60,000. So 120,000 signatures have been collected by voters across Atlanta to try to force a referendum in the city to shut down Cop City. And of course, it's being frozen. Their grassroots power is being pushed back, held up deliberately by the courts, which is ridiculous. Like Andre Dickens, the mayor of Atlanta, he should be voted out. Like the referendum of his election of Cop City should be on voting him out, because he's somebody that, from all the research I've done, is just gaslighting central. So with that, that's the latest, is the People Power movement is forcing a referendum. Unfortunately, there's been just a disgusting police response, as one can imagine. There was a protester who was shot and killed. Not just shot and killed. This is really important. Manuel Terán was shot dead in Cop City by police, and the autopsy revealed that he had 57 bullet holes in him. 57 bullet holes. A peaceful protester, an environmentalist who was camping out and trying to stop the forest from being bulldozed at a time when we desperately need more trees because we are in a climate crisis. We should be planting more trees, not knocking them down for militarized police games. And so Terán was refusing to leave the area. He was camping out night after night, and police made an example of him by assassinating him with 57 bullet holes. 57. Like, that's gratuitous. Like, that's terror. That was meant to send a chilling threat to everyone. And instead what it did was it further created a groundswell of grassroots energy to push back and fight for this referendum to shut down Grass City by the people of Atlanta. And dozens of protesters have been labeled domestic terrorists. Many have been charged by the state of Georgia with racketeering charges. Racketeering, the same charges that Trump, a lifelong corrupt criminal, and his gang were hit with, right? So these environmental and social justice reformers were hit with these same charges as the Trump crime cult. So yeah, it's the whole disgusting, corporate-backed, fascist, over-militarized police nonsense of Cop City is something that anybody who cares about re-election as a Democrat needs to be vocal on, needs to be upfront with with their constituents about, because it's something that is spreading. Cop cities are being built. There's one that just broke ground in Tennessee. So it's spreading, because what happens is with our already existing over-militarized police force all around the country, and I want to just point out, I grew up in an infamously over-militarized police town. As a white girl growing up in a small town of Davis, California, I went to UC Davis. You may know UC Davis as the pepper spray school, where a cop was pepper spraying college student protesters that were just sitting there peacefully, locked arms, protesting. He just went around like he was watering his garden with a hose by spraying them point blank in the face. And it made front page headlines, and it made my alma mater known as the pepper spray school. Going to UC Davis, even though I was white and I had white supremacy to protect me, I still was put in a police car, just walking around. That's how overly aggressive the police are at UC Davis and in Davis. They would act like they were in a war zone, even though we were like one of the most peaceful, quiet cities, during that time, in the world. So when you have all these toys for these cops to play with, it goes to their heads. They play Rambo in their minds. It's the Officer Farva from Super Troopers example that I gave you. I've been around cops. There was a program that somebody I know worked on, a safety program involved with cops. They're not highly educated. So you get a lot of dumb white supremacists, like proud racists, proud Trump supporter meatheads, filling these positions, not qualified, not trained, and just wanting to blow shit up. And that's what the cop cities that are spreading around the country are all about. It's just a surge of power. And that's the fascist element, because fascism is all about a surge of power. And the guy who's telling you, I alone can fix it, I'm your savior, I'm your hero, I'm the only one you can trust. It's me against the enemies of the people, the journalists, the media, and the socialists, right? That guy is telling you, yeah, you have a right to have that surge in power. You have the right to feel powerful. That is what Cop City is about. And that's why it's spreading as a recruitment tool, so that these local cities can get more money, get more war toys. And it's government waste, and it threatens people's lives. It over-militarizes the police, which makes the police highly more aggressive, which makes it more likely that innocent people are going to be injured or killed. And that's why they place it there deliberately in a predominantly black neighborhood, because as we've seen, they just don't value black lives. And if you look at New York City, there's been a big high-profile case of a well-known environmentalist, a police reformer, who was stabbed repeatedly in the chest by a teenager that was obviously going through a mental health crisis. And right-wing media, the New York Post, is picking up on this, how naive we are on the left, how dangerous New York City is. The reality is that New York has increased its policing. It's increased its policing, all right? Instead of increasing mental health services, instead of increasing after school programs for young people, development programs, investing in the people, it's increased police services. We have a cop as mayor, and it hasn't made the city safer. So yeah, and so largely what the issue is we need smart community investing. We need to lower the temperature with our security forces, and we need to have deeper, meaningful reforms to instill systems of checks and balances and greater community oversight, and make it easier to call and ensure a referendum is not just possible, but that it takes effect, right? And so that's what we need hand in hand right now. That's the answer to curbing these security forces being out of control, fascist recruiting grounds, right? And it scares me because because it's all going hand in hand, everything that we talk about on the show for months. When you look at the climate crisis with the number of displaced people being astronomical to the point where national security reports by the American government say that we're heading into an age that's going to be ungovernable. And now you have these cop cities sprouting up to try to get these security forces ready for that time, right? What are they going to do? Like pen us in, like terrorize us into submission while they run amok and have their little fun war games and like fuck whoever they want, just like the Russian soldiers do when they occupy a city in Ukraine, a town in Ukraine. Is that what we're headed towards with our own police force? I know that sounds extreme, but you have to have imagination like that in order to understand that you cannot let them incrementally grow above accountability like this. We have to push back. We have to support the movement to shut down Cop City. We have to support the local organizers, the local voters to get their referendum, to let the people have a voice. And the mayor of Atlanta needs to be replaced. There's a lot of talent now in Georgia. The state's never been more electrified. And so if this is who they have as mayor, who's trying to usher in this era of cop cities nationwide, he needs to go. The referendum needs to be on him, as I've already said. And every single serious Democratic candidate, including Biden, needs to come out and say, Cop City is we need to keep our public forest for the public, and we need to keep our public services working hand in hand with the public, with the voters. And Cop City is not the answer. We support common sense police working hand in hand with local services, but Cop City is not the answer. Biden so far has failed to do that. It's something that if he does not wise up on, if those around him do not wake him up on this issue, he cannot win on Ukraine alone. He cannot win on, forgiving student debt here and there, as he has recently done again. But he cannot win on those issues alone. He has to be forceful here because Cop City is an issue that's going to be exploited by a lot of bots that are going to be energized to try to tip the election towards Trump heading into 2024. You're going to have the troll farms trying to divide the left on this, just like they did in 2016 with Black Lives Matter, right? The Russians were doing all their astroturfing on that in 2016. So Biden needs to face Cop City in a meaningful and authentic way eventually, and he needs to be on the right side of history here. He absolutely needs to be on the right side of history. And so I'm telling you right now, Biden, Standing Rock hung over Hillary in 2016. It wasn't just the Russians that helped tilt the scales towards Trump. And right now, Cop City is your standing rock, and you need to get right with the people on it. All right. So I'm going to make this episode available to everyone. Normally, this portion of the show would be a Patreon exclusive, but because it's such an important topic, and I do not think Biden has handled it well so far, and his team needs to get on it, and we all need to be vigilant of it, of what the larger story of Cop City is for us and our future. And so I'm going to make this available to everyone for free, and to the Patreon donors, to the Patreon community that makes this show possible, I will give you something extra fun later in the month. And also thank you for all of your questions. Thank you, Jennifer, for your question. All of you on Patreon with your questions, with your comments, you shape the show. What you're thinking about, what's keeping you up at night. I'm there with you on it, and so that's where I get ideas for what I cover in these episodes. So I appreciate hearing from you. And thank you to everyone for staying engaged on these issues. If you want to hang out with me, I'm going to be having a phone bank party with Sister District on Thursday, October 26th at 6 p.m. Eastern, fighting the good fight, making my phone calls to voters in Virginia to protect reproductive health care in Virginia. If Posh Trump Glenn Youngkin gets a supermajority in the state government in Virginia, he will ban abortion, and women will, people will needlessly suffer for that. So we're trying to stop Posh Trump. We're trying to protect abortion rights, reproductive health care in Virginia. So I hope you'll join me 6 p.m. Eastern, October 26th, Thursday, making calls to voters in Virginia with Sister District. Thank you all so much. Have a great weekend.